are few crimes that have left such a strong mark on the collective British memory. This video is about an evil monster who murdered two 10-year-old beautiful little girls and his then partner, who hindered the investigation by giving him a false alibi and appeared to quite enjoy the limelight while doing so. This is the case of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. On Sunday, 4th of August in Soham, Cambridgeshire, Jessica went to Holly's house for a barbecue. They played, got changed into matching Manchester United shirts, and Holly's mum took that now famous photo of them smiling in the kitchen. A few hours later, they slipped out to buy sweets from a nearby vending machine. When they did not come back, their parents raised the alarm. Very quickly, the search escalated. Neighbours, police, volunteers, helicopters, press, everyone. Soham turned from a quiet town into the focus of national attention almost overnight. Among the familiar faces on the news was a man who seemed particularly keen to talk. The local school caretaker, Ian Huntley. Could replace that H with a C. Anywho, Huntley lived at 5 College Close near the school. On camera, he described being the last person to see the girls alive, saying that they had walked past his house and he had had a brief chat with them. He talked about hoping and praying they were safe. He looked worried. Did he actually, though? Just go and have a look. He used the right phrases, sort of. He lingered in front of the cameras, and for a while, the public saw him as a concerned local who had tried to help, whereas in reality, he was the one who had killed them. It was less an interview, more an audition for most smugly obvious suspect. His girlfriend, Maxine Carr, a teaching assistant at the girls' school, joined in. She spoke tearfully about my girls, gave interviews about how lovely they were, and backed up Huntley's story that the children had popped by the house that evening. The difficulty, of course, was that she was not even in Soham at the time. She was in Grimsby. So unless she had discovered invisibility and teleportation, please could I have that, thank you, her alibi was not just weak, it was non-existent, right? Behind the scenes, police were growing suspicious, of course, as was the whole country. Huntley was inserting himself into the investigation, asking detailed questions and displaying an odd level of interest in what evidence they might have. Officers also noticed scratches on his face, which he blamed on his dog. As excuses go, the dog did it has never really been a strong indicator of innocence. I speak from experience, perhaps. As the inquiry widened, information came in from Humberside, where Huntley had previously lived. People recognised him from the news and reported a history of allegations, including sexual offences against underage girls that had never led to convictions. Meanwhile, a search of his house raised even more alarm. The place had been cleaned so aggressively, it practically smelled of bleach through the television. For a single man in a modest house, this sudden kind of passion for domestic sparkle looked less like a personality quirk and more like guilt with a mop. On the 17th of August, 12 days after Holly and Jessica had disappeared, police arrested Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr. That same day, the bodies of the 2 girls were discovered in a remote, overgrown ditch near RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk. They had been concealed and burned. It was a bleak confirmation of what many had already feared and probably assumed. In interviews, Huntley tried to present himself as confused and mentally unwell. His story shifted. He admitted the girls had died in his house, but claimed both deaths were accidental and that he panicked and tried to cover it up. It was a narrative that required the jury to believe that 2 children had died by coincidence in his bathroom and that his natural response was to burn their clothes, dump their bodies miles away, and then give press conferences. And even by the standard of terrible lives, that was ambitious. Carr questioned separately, admitted that she had lied to provide him with an alibi. She said that when she had been away in Grimsby, Huntley had told her over the phone, "The thing is, Maxine, they came in our house." She said she believed his version of events and thought she was protecting an innocent man. Whether she was intimidated or simply choosing loyalty over morality, she still knowingly misled police and the public, while two families were living a literal nightmare. The worst thing a family parent could possibly imagine. So, the trial began at the Old Bailey in November 2003. Huntley pleaded not guilty to murder, but admitted responsibility for their deaths. The prosecution argued that he had lured the girls into his house shortly after 6:30 p.m. on the 4th of August and killed them soon afterwards, likely with a sexual motive. Forensic evidence, phone records and witness testimony all pointed in the same direction. The picture was of a predatory man who saw an opportunity and took it, then tried to clean his way out of a double murder. Carr was charged with assisting an offender and perverting the course of justice for providing a false alibi and her public statements. Her emotional interviews, where she referred to Holly and Jessica as my girls, became powerful evidence of just how convincingly she had supported his lies. In December 2003, Ian Huntley was convicted of the murders of both Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. He received 2 life sentences with a minimum term of 40 years. It is not enough, in my opinion. He will be considered for release, he won't be considered for release until at least 2042, and there is little appetite anywhere for that consideration to go in his favour. God. Maxine Carr was acquitted of 1 charge of assisting an offender, but convicted of the other, and of perverting the course of justice. She was sentenced to 3.5 years, serving around half before release, and was later granted lifelong anonymity. The case triggered national outrage, not only at the crime itself, but at how someone with Huntley's history had been able to work as a school caretaker. The Bishard inquiry, sorry if I wrecked that pronunciation, exposed serious failings in how police forces and agencies shared information. That led to significant changes in vetting, record keeping and safeguarding, including the systems that evolved into today's disclosure and barring service checks in the UK, which is basically the same as a background check or anything. It shows if you have a criminal record, and there are advanced versions for showing whether you've had cautions or other things that might not show if there weren't convictions. Anyway, it was a very brutal way for the country to learn that no conviction does not always mean no concern. At the heart of all of this are 2 10-year-old beautiful little girls, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, who should have grown up, taken exams, discovered music, makeup, fallen in love, and had the sort of ordinary, messy life every child deserves. Instead, their lives were taken by a man whose arrogance was such that he thought he could talk his way out of a crime scene he had mopped within an inch of its life. Join us now as Paul analyses what the behaviour says beyond the words, and I ask all the questions, because after all, people might lie, but behaviour does not. Take care.